Welcome to another episode of Monte Talks. And today we will be talking a lot about things that maybe sometimes we don't focus on that much, which are third-party scripts, hydration, and developer hints. For your host, there's me, Jakub. I'm a senior full stack developer and advocate at Montreal. And as my guest today, we have Julien. So, Julien, if you could tell our listeners, our viewers, a few words about yourself, that would be amazing.
Yes, of course. So thank you for the invitation. My name is Julien. I've been a web developer for over 5 years now. Time flies. Soon 6 years. And if you look at what year I started to learn how to code, I'm part of the post-COVID generation developers. um, so yeah, I've been a developer for over 5 years. I'm also part of the Nuxt Core Team. I'm currently working as a front-end lead at a company called Leech in France. And well, if you're watching this, at this time, I'm probably moving to another company. And I'll be working for improving developer experience and on UI.
Sounds amazing. So, about those improvements, UI or in general developer experience, these are the things that usually they don't come as a first thing when we think about tools or programming, while they should be. So, my question to you is what made you decide that you want to ship code or create projects that will help developers have much better experience?
I think these kind of project comes came with open source. Um, you know, today in the JavaScript world, we and yeah, in the front end world in general, even in backend uh, projects, we do use a lot of libraries. While the developer experience sometimes doesn't comes first, um, it can really slow you down. Um, Before Vite, I don't know if you remember, before Vite, we had Webpack. It's still used, but it felt like you had to get a master degree to be able to understand how things worked under the hood and just to configure your project. And this is what's important for developer experience is to make things simple. And yeah, so it came with open source. It helps a lot of if your project have a good developer experience. I would say it helps a lot for adoption. Now, this is from from a developer perspective. And I know in companies, sometimes you have a lot of policies on which library you can use, on the time you can spend on choosing a library to test it, because, um, time is limited in company projects. And of course, I guess managers or product managers usually want to release features fast. And yeah, so my idea is to get about developer experience and how I went into creating libraries for to improve developer experience is to basically help others.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So, speaking of shipping features fast and not caring that much about developer experience, I think there is a topic that comes to my mind instantly, which is about scripts, one of the topics for today's podcast. Especially that when you see Google Analytics or other kinds of third party scripts that usually we need to add to web application at some point, The instructions usually tell you that in order to add Google Analytics to your website, just add this script code to your head tag and you will be fine. So our, let's say, supervisors, they say, yeah, look at the instructions. You can add this Google Analytics really, really fast, and we can proceed with the next features. But then comes performance, for example, and you run a test with Lighthouse or with PageSpeed Insights, and what you see there, a remark that this script is slowing you down significantly. So what is your approach on trying to optimize that in a developer-friendly way?
So first, about what you said about supervisor wanting to ship features fast. I do have my own opinion on it. Like, I do understand why non-tech supervisors or managers or project managers want to ship features fast, and which can be understandable. They're more on the business side of the company, and while developers, tech leads, I don't know, like tech supervisors, what I like to think is that they are more, what's the word again? Not responsible, but I forgot the word. It's yeah, let's say responsible for the quality of the code, the performances that are of the code that are shipped into production. So if someone ever tell you just do it like this and ship it, yeah, you should probably try to change your supervisor. Maybe, yeah, that could be a possibility. But in my opinion, we are if we are working on front end or back end, we are engineers. So we try to solve problems, and we're not here just to write code and ship it. Behind it, there's a need to be solved. And we have to think about what impact it can have on some other metrics like performances, for example. And yeah, there's a lot of issues with third parties. So now about the question is, I guess it's about what kind of hint we can have.
I would say, what would be your approach, or not maybe just you, but in general for Nuxt or Vue developers, how they should integrate those scripts so that they will still work, but they will not cause those problems?
So yeah, usually we have for loading script. Years ago, maybe we didn't have some official libraries. We had Vuehead for Vue developers, and now recently we have, well, it's not that recent, but yeah, we have Unhead, which was created by Harlan Wilton, who's also on the Nuxt Core team. And Unhead is almost the default head management library. It's always the default head management library I use for like, yeah. So it's a head management library. So for anything related to head, for script also, and loading, CSS files. And unhide comes with default values. We have the browser's default values, which is usually everything is empty, but some of these attributes, even if you don't set them explicitly, there's a native browser behavior. I think the best example is the refer attribute, which is by default to refer no downgrade, and unhead for privacy. For better privacy, the library will, when you add a script, the library will set the refer attribute to no refer. by default. So there's, all these kind of better defaults will are applied by Unhead when you add a script. And of course, since you don't have to care about it, um, it's a better developer experience. Less code. We don't have to think about it.
Especially that when we are rushed, we sometimes forget about those things because we don't have
Yeah,
that much time to think about all the cases, all the other metrics, as you mentioned, right? We just focus on delivering fast because we are um, asked to do
pressurized.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, asked to do it fast, right? To deliver new features faster and
yeah,
faster.
and I think we can allow that kind of things to happen. The only thing we have to remember is to, of course, if you need to ship a, a fix or a feature fast, well, you have to clean it once it is released in production.
Yeah, agree. So about that, one thing that it's, let's say, ahead of my next question or next topic, but we will get there eventually, is should frameworks like Nuxt.js or Next.js or others, should they warn somehow the users that they might have issues with third-party scripts in, let's say, development, so that um, users will find or developers will find out about them faster than releasing it to production, running Lighthouse or PageSpeed Insights, and then figuring out.
Um, I think so. First, because there's, giving as much hints or warning as possible to developers will ultimately make force them or just tell them to fix it before either opening the PR or building it to production. Um, Today, in Nuxt at least, um, well, let's start first with all frameworks. All frameworks now have a dev tool, like a runtime in-browser dev tool. Before, years ago, was usually most of the time as a Chrome extension. Today, it becomes a bundler plugin to inject, iframes so they can have much more information. So on this side, most of the time I would say it's an adaptation, oh no, port of the old Chrome extension to into a plugin. And also in Nuxt though, we can do a bit more. We have a module called Nuxt Hints, which is still in alpha stage. Um, 1.0 will be released soon. And yeah, so we do plenty of things to warn the users, whether it is on third-party loading. Um, we just show them how many time it takes for third-party to load. Um, then on images, if they're optimized or not, and if they can cause, layout shifting. And lastly, hydration. So hydration is a big thing. It's sometimes very hard to debug because there could be a lot of reasons why you have hydration issue on your page, and sometimes reloading your page doesn't cause hydration, and reloading it again do cause it. So yeah, hydration is probably the hardest thing to solve in bigger projects or in companies' projects.
Agree. So about those hints, we'll go there in a second to explain what it is and with more details, because we were it was Julien who was like running this initiative. I helped at some point with it, and we are really happy that it's live. About the 1.0 release, I think I have a glimpse on when it will be released, because I've seen the posters from Vue Amsterdam conference that is happening soon. Yeah, if you can, for our audience, if you can be there with us, it will be amazing to see you and celebrate together the 1.0 release. But before we go into the hints themselves, I would like to focus a bit more about hydration, because hydration is a topic that usually, as you mentioned, causes a lot of problems, a lot of frustration, and sometimes it's not as simple to debug it. I can share one problem that was resolving last year related to hydration in one of the Nuxt projects that I was maintaining. The fact was that there was a hydration mismatch, but only on certain page in certain condition. And the problem was that in production, there was no error, no warning. It was just that certain elements were displayed twice. So when I was asked to verify this issue, because it was strange that there are two times, it was an article list or a grid, something like this, and it was duplicated, right? There was too many times, two lists, let's say. So I was diving into the code, asking myself what could be the issue, because it is working very well on other pages which are very similar. But at this specific one, there must have been something that is causing this issue. And probably, if there was a way to let me know in development that there are those cases, I could probably realize it much faster than seeing it in production and then trying to debug it. So, could you tell us a bit more from your experience about this hydration? So, why focusing on that, and what are your, let's say, recommendations for Vue developers working with SSR, for Nuxt developers, like the best practices from your experience on not having hydration mismatch?
Yeah, so well, first for people who doesn't know what hydration is, well, it's not drinking water in Vue. It's it's in case of server-side rendering, the server will send you back an HTML response. So it's already you get your application already rendered in your HTML, and these when you load your Vue application or your React application, it can be any SSR framework. Your framework need to get back to the state at server-side rendering time. So it means that it needs, in case of Vue, to generate all the V nodes, so the virtual nodes that can be applied to the current DOM elements. So this is the hydration process, and the hydration mismatch happens when, let's say, you have a p tag, or if you have a p tag rendered at server-side rendering time, and in your browser, your Vue application gets a span vnode, so it doesn't match. And what happens is that at that time, Vue will try to re-render, well, first to remove the DOM element from your browser and patch it by with the vnode that the component has returned. The issue is that it can run the component renders, well, 2 times, 3 in total. So once server-side, 2 times in the browser, and cause performance issues. So this is at dev time, and it at dev time, when you catch hydration mismatch, it will log it in your browser. But in production time, sometimes this patch mechanism can bug, and that's why you can get your element twice. So now about best practices on hydrations. Well, first, I would say watch your console logs. Vue will log it in development mode. So yeah, it's best to first catch all of these logs and solve it before merging a PR. Then I would say server-side rendering is usually, it's for, I would say, better SEO, better experience, because like your user sees the rendered application directly from the HTML response. So there's it technically is faster, even if it's not interactive before the hydration step. But the feeling of your users gets is that your website loads faster. Well, I would say that you don't have to do server-side rendering for all side of your every single pages of your application. Like private pages, I don't know, like for a huge user dashboard, sometimes you don't need to do server-side rendering, so you can avoid it when not needed. Then there's also for debug. In Vue, it's kind of hard sometimes because the log in the console sometimes shows you a vnode, sometimes the DOM element. So yeah, but you can kind of find where which component are mismatched, and that's the reason I've been working on a hydration mismatch diff. First, it was a Nuxt module that has been released maybe 2 years ago, and now it's part of Nuxt Hints. So the way it works is that when your JavaScript loads, when your plugins are running, and when your components are rendering, especially when your components are rendering, we take a snapshot of its current element and then take a snapshot after it has mounted. So we can make a diff of the two DOM elements, and if there is a difference between them, we can log it and also tell the users which component has mismatched. And yeah, so if they know which component has mismatched, has a hydration mismatch, they can open it on VS Code and try to, I don't know, like solve the issue.
Yeah, I looked at it and it's amazing work what you did there. And about the
and yeah, so this is something very custom made. We hope to have unmismatched hook coming in Vue 3.6. It's currently still an open PR, so yeah, we hope to see it released very soon.
Yeah, it would be amazing to have it as a part of Vue framework. But speaking of hydration, you also mentioned about performance and stuff. So I wanted to dive deeper right now into topic that is related to both of those. So both hydration and performance. So about lazy hydration. Could you tell our users, our audience, our viewers, why we might want to think about lazy hydration if we have like server rendered application?
Yeah, so lazy hydration, how would I define it? Let's say you have a Vue application. Let's not talk about server-side rendering. Let's talk about the good old SPA. You know, in your good old SPA, whether it is React or Vue or Angular, it needs to load your component to render your actual application. But sometimes your component actually doesn't renders immediately. It can be like the render can be conditional behind VF or VLs, and so you probably don't want to import your component immediately. So the good performance practice would be to make it as lazy loaded, which means it will be loaded only when needed, so only when it renders. Some people may think like, then why don't we make every single component lazy loaded? The issue is that you tell the bundler that this piece of chunk, because like components are bundled, and your bundler creates chunks of JavaScript. These piece of components will always be like, there's a possibility of it having being lazy load. So what your bundler does is that it will create a chunk for it. And well, if you have things like Cloudflare, caching, things like that, like services like that, first, it counts as one request. So you can basically blow up your, for your users, the JavaScript chunk request numbers. And so, yeah, loading your application can become slower. So it's about deciding on which content can be lazy loaded, and if you want to lazy load them or not. Now in Nuxt, though, the good performance practice is that lazy loading can be, so you have to lazy load your components, only those which are conditional. But we also have a new kind of lazy loading is, you can lazy load your components on interaction, or when they becomes visible. I think it's also a view feature. So it was a view feature, and we made it available in Nuxt as a prefix and using attributes. Now, why do we need it in Nuxt? So this can be a huge performance improvement in Nuxt, because you receive your HTML, and basically we do say at hydration time, well, just wait for it or ignore it. And only when, like, if you set your hydrate on visible attribute or interaction on hover attribute, basically it's when your user will move the like cursor on the component. At that time, Vue will load the component, import the chunk, and render it. And so it makes it interactive. So yeah, I think that was what is currently available in Nuxt. We are still looking to improve it by having multiple attributes at the same time. But for now, from what I remember, it's only one attribute available at the same time on a single component.
I see. So regarding that, I think there's a topic that we should discuss as well, which is also a Nuxt feature, and it's also something that you have been working on in another one of your open source projects, which is about server-only components. This is something that was introduced in Nuxt some time ago, and when talking about like hydration, so shipping JavaScript to hydrate the actual component, make it interactive, and so on and so on, there are probably cases where we might not need that interactivity at all, and this is where server components come. So maybe if you could share with our audience as well a bit about those server components, and maybe about the projects you are working on.
Yeah, so we have something in Nuxt called Nuxt Island. So an island in Nuxt, if you're familiar with Astro, let's start with Astro. Astro Islands, basically, Astro is an MPA, so it's a multi-page application. when you change your when you navigate away from your page, you make another request to your server. The reason is that by default, everything is non-interactive. So everything is static by default, and then you have something called like an attribute or a directive. It's load, probably not dash, load something client to actually load your component in your browser. Nuxt Island is the opposite. In Nuxt, you load your whole view application. You make it interactive. So I would say in 99% of Nuxt project, your whole page is interactive. Nuxt Island is basically an island of static content within a view application. It means that if your renders interactive like inputs or buttons, they are not linked to your view application because it's just pure HTML. So this is what a Nuxt Island is. Now, a server component is simply a Nuxt Island being wrapped. So you can call your server like any Nuxt Island, because if you want to render a Nuxt Island, you have to call the Nuxt Island component. Server component is simply a Nuxt Island component being wrapped with the component names. So you get a better developer experience. So yeah. Now, when to use server components? Basically, it's still components. The way it works is that it makes a request to your Nuxt server when you call it, and then Nuxt will render the content, return a JSON payload, and in your browser, Vue just renders a static content. So I've seen a lot of question about it. Mostly, first, should we use server only things in a server component? I would probably say no, because it's still an endpoint and it's public, and you don't get like middlewares or the usual route codes or things that you usually use to protect your endpoints. So I would probably discourage people to use like private access or displaying private keys or data in a component directly, but to still keep retrieving data behind another endpoint that is actually well protected.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So now, if we can move to the actual hints, because we mentioned about it some time ago, a few times actually in aspect of hydration and then third-party scripts and performance. So you mentioned, or I mentioned, that there is a plan to release 1.0 quite soon. So could you share with our audience, with our viewers, what can we expect from this 1.0 version?
So alpha release has been, the first alpha release was made, well, I don't actually remember, but probably in December, I think, or November, to get the first release and get people to try it out and get feedback on it. So V1 will have, and I hope so, 2 additional features that are already in PR, which is pre-render hint to help users to decide on which page could be pre-rendered. And the other one is more of a bad practice, is to use global, to use reactive or ref in the global scope, which can sometimes lead to data leaks between requests or data pollution, and some of the time it can also lead to memory leaks. And we all know how hard it is to debug memory leaks in JavaScript.
Yeah, agree.
So for now, that's the only features that are pending. But if people got more ideas, just feel free to open an issue on the Nuxt Hints GitHub, and we'll try to work on it, and maybe you will see it in 1.0.
Yeah, for sure. So about, let's say, the future of hydration and scripts. So maybe let's start with scripts first. Do you think that third-party scripts, they will stop being a problem, or will it stay with us for the next few years, like the performance issues, maybe security issues? Do you think that this will change, or will it stay the same as it is today?
I don't think it will change. First, because third parties usually are requests made from not from developers, but actually from, I don't know, like product managers or the data department. The idea is that it's not managed by developers. So it means that you can have, like, non-tech people can have an impact on the website, on the production website, that is actually not related to the code you've shipped. Like, let's take the example of Go Tag Manager. If it's not managed by developers, sometimes they are not aware of what is being added by GTM. That's also a reason why many developers, and it's also a good practice, but like to have security headers. So I know, like, you've been working a lot on like security since you've created it, and there's like a pending CSP PR to Nuxt. So yeah, that, there's always these. It's not conflict, but it's debates on whether on whether production websites should be only like being under the responsibility of a tech department or not. Ultimately, it's just how companies work, and the process has to be decided by not managers, but usually by C levels, whether it is CTO, CPO, any C level, really. And yeah, there's, of course, a lot of advantages to use third parties. First, because it kind of removed some responsibility from developers, and it allows other stakeholders to work faster.
Yeah, I see. And about the second thing, about the hydration. We talked about hydration itself, about hydration mismatches, about lazy hydration. We talked a bit about the island architecture. So what do you think will be the future about the whole hydration? Will it be still evolved, or do we reach the end, let's say, of the topic of hydration?
I think we'll have to see. I'm probably not involved enough in like SPA framework, but hydration, the topic of hydration can change a lot. It depends on how a framework works. In Vue, for example, you have to hydrate your whole page. We know in Astro, you hydrate only the content you want to load. So you don't get a full application, I would say, englobing, or wrapping your whole dome. We also had Quick, which has another idea of hydration. Um, so I would guess I would say it depends on the framework. If there's a new framework that gets released, usually it's because it tries to solve another issue. And if the issue is hydration, you can see something new, yeah, in the future. For now, on Vue side, I'm not sure about it. I guess we have to wait for maybe Vue 4 to get a new thing. Yeah, to get new things on hydration.
Yeah, completely agree. So we are now reaching to, let's say, the end of this podcast, but I will have two last questions to you. The first is about with the one thing that you would like the audience to remember from this podcast, like the one best practice or the one recommendation from your side that would make life easier for every developer.
Oh, life easier, you say? I would say one thing I wish, and I would probably say to my past self, is we are like not only front-end developers, but developers in general. We are like engineers. We work on solutions that try to solve a need. So yeah, this is very company oriented. Because like that's where you probably spend most of your time coding. So yeah, the idea I have is that the product department may be more focused on the business, but the tech department usually have to be responsible for the quality of the code that is being delivered and just responsible for the production website. Now, when there's a conflict between the developers and the product manager and product department, for example, we can always get agree on something that is in the middle. But once this like the code is shipped, we can try to maybe degrade the quality for a few days or weeks. We still have to solve it and not let it be technical debt. Sometimes you can accept it, but in the end, it's your own choice. And try to avoid just code for just for coding. Don't know if I explained it well, but yeah, every line of code has to have a goal behind it, and in the end, you have to satisfy your users, your end users.
Yeah, I completely agree. Philip Rakowski once said that the best code is the one that you don't write, like you don't develop, because then it doesn't require maintenance, it doesn't cause bugs. About technical debt and not actually solving the problem, but just writing code for writing code. So I completely agree with what you said, especially about the technical debt, which can very easily find its way to our project and stay with us for years without being fixed. So I completely agree.
Yeah, you have to
So
like get the idea of you will never fix technical debt. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of the reality in a lot of companies, because you don't have the time.
yeah, exactly. So Julian, the final question to you: where can people follow your work and learn more about the tools you are building?
Well, first thing on GitHub, because that's the only place I'm actually active. I'm a much less active on social media, even though I do read like news from people like on Blue Sky or Twitter. So I'm available on these social media. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'll try to get back on these medias and try to post more. I also have my own website, which is, which usually once you release it, you don't touch it anymore. And it's very experimental. So I'm testing my own libraries on it um, that I hope to release this summer.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So thanks, Julian, for participating in this episode. It was amazing to learn more about third-party scripts or scripts in general, about the hydration, about the hints module that we are really, really waiting for the version 1.0 being released soon. And we talked about performance as well. So it was really great discussion. Thanks for participating and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, see you next time.